Hello everyone, thank you for signing in and watching my live stream. Welcome to Algebra 1. I'm Mr. Matt and this is Dr. Tot. Last two sessions we've been talking about reading and writing, or I should say writing and reading expressions. That's the title of the video, so let me get it straight. And so we've been talking about, started with a few definitions, some vocab of sum, difference, product, and quotient. And so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen with you here. Okay, so just a vocab recap. Remember that the sum implies addition. It's the answer to an addition problem in mathematics. The difference between values, excuse me, if I could spell, implies subtraction. The product implies multiplication. Sorry about that. My iPad disconnected there. Let me connect it again. Sorry about that. So the product implies multiplication because it's the answer to a multiplication problem. And the quotient implies division. Also, the word in mathematics, the word quantity is oftentimes used to describe a total complex value inside parentheses. So it's the all the values that are inside a set of parentheses. Okay, if you have any questions, just let me know. That's just a general recap. Some vocab words, but otherwise, let's go ahead and get into some questions here. If there's any confusion about what you should do first, remember to always follow the order of operations, PEMDAS. So you have parentheses, then exponents, then multiplication, division, then addition, subtraction. Okay, so I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Please translate the following phrases to algebraic expressions. And I'll keep track of the time on the board and update it per minute. Okay, so looking at number 1, 5 less than the square of m, quantity times 2. So sometimes the order can be a bit confusing, a bit tricky. If it's 5 less than something, even though the word 5, I should say, the word 5 is coming before the phrase square of m, it's less than 5, 5 less than the square of m. So you have to take the square of m and then subtract away the 5. And this quantity times 2 means the whole thing, the m squared minus 5 times 2. So describing this as a quantity means that all of this stuff gets put together inside of parentheses, and that whole thing is times 2. So 5 less than the square of m is m squared minus 5. Quantity times 2 is the whole thing times 2. And that's exactly, remember, the commutative property of a multiplication tells us that order doesn't matter. So this is the same thing as 2 times m squared minus 5. Now remember, subtraction is not commutative, meaning that order does matter with subtraction. So m squared minus 5, you need to make sure that you get that correct, translating it from the phrase to the algebra. That is not the same thing as 5 minus m squared, right? Those are different expressions. In one, the m squared is negative, in the other, the 5 is negative. So they're two different expressions, and you have to make sure that you get that correct. Number 2, 3b squared plus 3b. So if they just say 3b, it's implied that the operation is multiplication. So 3b squared plus 3b. So that would be your answer there. Let me fix this 3. So 3b squared plus 3b. That could simplify. You could pull a 3 out, but they didn't ask you to do that. Okay, so that would be fine there. If you have any questions, please let me know, either in the live chat function or in the comment section below. If not, let's move on to these two problems. I'd like you to translate the following expressions into English phrases. I'll give you 3 minutes. So sometimes the wording can be rather subjective, meaning that it's open to personal interpretation. So I'm going to give you a few different variations, all of which would be graded correct, graded as correct, I should say. So as long as you got one of these or you're in the ballpark of getting the relationships correct, then I would be happy with it. There's not a specific one way of writing out these algebraic expressions, as we're going to see. So for number one way that we could write this is we could say 3f quantity squared times 5g quantity squared minus 7h. That's one way, and actually I'm going to label this 1a because I'm going to go through a few examples here. Let me make some room. Another way that we could represent this is we could say 7h less than 3f quantity raised to the second power times, or let me just use a different word, I could say multiplied by 5g quantity raised to the second power. So these are exactly equivalent expressions or descriptions. So I just want you to be aware of both of them. For the second expression, 2a, so one way that we could represent this guy, we could say 12l plus 7i quantity divided by 3m squared plus 5n cubed. Now you could have alternate ways of writing that by using, instead of using squared and cubed, you could say to the second power, to the third power. For time's sake, I'm not going to write that out here, but you could have another alternative just by replacing squared and cubed with raised to the second power and raised to the third power respectively. Okay, notice, and there is a key difference here that I want to point out. You have to recognize the difference between this and this. In the first example, in the first green box, notice that the square is outside of parentheses. So that squared is applying to the 3 and to the f. That's 3f quantity squared. The second box is 3m squared. So if the whole thing is raised to the second power, then you describe that by saying quantity squared after you list out the 3f. But if the exponent is only applied to the variable, then you just list out the number and then the variable squared or the variable cubed, whatever it is. And that implies, if you don't say quantity, then that implies that it's only the variable that's being acted upon by the exponent. Okay, if you have any questions about that, please let me know. Otherwise, let's look at this guy. I'd like you to translate the following phrases to algebraic expressions. I'll give you 3 minutes. Okay, so number 1, 5x squared minus 2x quantity divided by 10. So that quantity divided by 10, that means this whole thing is a group. That whole thing is entirely together in the numerator. So we'd have 5x squared, so 5 times x to the second power minus 2x, so subtract 2 times x, quantity over, so that means the whole thing, or quantity divided by, meaning 5x squared and negative 2x are all divided by 10. So that would be the answer to the first question. Number 2, m to the 4th power plus 3 times m squared. So m to the 4th power would be m raised to the 4th power plus 3 times m squared. Notice how it doesn't say quantity times m squared. So if you did m to the 4th plus 3 quantity m squared, that's how that would be read. It would be quantity m squared if it was that second version there. But they didn't say quantity m squared, they said 3 times m squared. So it can be very tricky. If you have any questions, then please let me know. I'm going to give you 5 minutes for this one. I'd like you to translate the following expressions into English phrases. Okay, so let's go through these. So number one, again, there's many ways to represent this, and I'll show you a few. Number one, we could represent this as 2x minus 3 times the quantity 3x plus 6 all over 5x plus 1 times the quantity 7x minus 2. And I'm sorry, let me make my camera a little bit smaller so you can see all of that. Now we could also represent this instead of, notice the phrase all over. So when you have a whole bunch of quantities, you can use the phrase all over to imply separating the numerator from the denominator. But you could also have expressed this several ways. We could, for example, say the product, remember product implies multiplication. So the product of the quantities 2x minus 3 and 3x plus 6 quantity over the product of the quantities 5x plus 1 and 7x minus 2. I'll make these smaller so they all fit a little nicer. Okay, if you have any questions about 1, then let me know. 2, we could also express this multiple ways, but I think that you got the gist from 1. But if you have any questions, then just let me know. If you want another example or another description of 2, then let me know. We could say 3 times the quantity x squared minus 5 quantity divided by 2x minus 3. Okay, if you have any questions, again, please let me know. Otherwise, let's look at these 2 questions. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Okay, so let's go through these. First one, I'll call this one 1, this one 2. M to the 4th power plus 3 times m squared. So m raised to the 4th power plus 3 times m raised to the 2nd power. So that would be number 1. Number 2, we have 6 times a squared plus 3 times a, quantity over 2 times a plus 2. All right, so this quantity over is implying a fraction, so we have this whole numerator over this whole denominator. So the numerator here is going to be 6 times a squared plus 3 times a, quantity divided by 2 times a plus 2. If you have any questions, then please let me know. Oh, I thought I had another set here. I guess we went through that a little faster than I thought. We still have a few minutes left. Let me not rewrite, but let me write another expression. So I'd like you to translate the following algebraic expressions to English phrases. So 1, let's look at this guy. And this guy. Okay, I'll give you 3 minutes. Okay, let's look at the first one here. Move this one down. So we could describe this as 3D cubed minus 4D times D plus 1 quantity divided by five D squared plus 4D. If you have any questions, please let me know. Last one, we could describe this guy as 3x plus 2 times 4x minus 1 quantity squared all over x plus 3. Okay, if you have any questions, then please let me know either in the live chat function or in the comments below. I'm here for you every day, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 6 o'clock to 6:45 for the Geometry Academic Support Program. Remember, we also have the SAT, Pre-Algebra, Geometry, and Algebra 2 academic support programs. So please like, favorite, and subscribe to my channel if you found this to be helpful. I hope that you all have a wonderful night and a wonderful weekend if I don't talk to you before then, before Monday, but otherwise, then I will talk to you all on Monday. And thank you very much for signing in.